Hey, first grade.
So today we're going to be doing an experiment where we discover, oh here he comes, where we discover the differences between saltwater and freshwater, because we studied saltwater habitats like oceans and we studied freshwater habitats like rivers and lakes. So we're going to need a few different materials. So you need at least 2 jars because we want one for sure with some plain water, and I labeled mine, and you want one with salt water, and that'll be the difference between freshwater and saltwater. But I'm also going to do this experiment with sugar water and baking soda water, and you could try it with some other things too. But these are the 4 that I'll be doing. So I have 4 jars. You need at least 2 for salt and plain. And then you need, of course, some salt. You need whatever else you're going to use, like my baking soda. The sugar I'm going to use is in this canister back here. And then we're going to stir in 2 tablespoons of each. So I have a 2 tablespoon measuring spoon. And then the last thing you need is something to put in each jar to see if it floats or not. So the suggestions that I saw were small grapes, raw eggs, or someone used like some little plastic jewels, but I wasn't sure exactly what I had that would work. So I'm going with raw eggs. You can do this with 1 egg, drop it in, see if it floats or not, take it out and put it in another jar. I'm gonna go ahead and do 4 just so we can see all 4 at the same time, and my eggs are going bad, so it's okay. So first step is to get some water in the jars. Okay, so I just filled my jars. Each one has about that much water in it. Really you need enough to see whether something is floating or sinking. Since I'm using an egg and it's a little bit bigger, I wanted it to be pretty full with water. So next, we're going to dissolve different things in the water. For the plain water, we're just going to leave it how it is because this is fresh water, came straight from the tap. We're not going to add anything to this jar of water. In this one, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of salt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I forgot you'll need a spoon to kind of mix in the items we're adding. Try to be careful. This table always ends up a mess when I do science experiments. Okay, add that in. Some nice salty water. And you can see how it's not super clear. It's pretty salty. Next up is 2 tablespoons of sugar dissolved into the sugar water jar. So I'm going to get those out of the canister. Here's my sugar. Carefully add that in and stir this one as well. This water is a little more clear than the salt water one. And I'm going to go over the sink to get the baking soda in case it makes a mess. Here is the baking soda. It's bubbling a little bit. That in. So now we are ready to see if the eggs float or sink in each type of water. So we're going to start with our plain water and salt water. Oops, there we go. So I've got 1 egg. I'm going to drop it in my plain water. So this is what an egg would do in regular fresh water. It goes straight to the bottom. Now we're gonna see, is salt water any different? So right now, make a quick prediction. What do you think is gonna happen? Let's find out. Here is my salt water. I'm dropping the egg in. Oh, it's hard to see it in there. And it also went straight to the bottom. Okay, we're gonna add some more salt. I'm just pouring it straight in there. And that definitely made it murkier. It's hard to see. The egg floated up a little bit. I'm gonna mix this up some more. Guess what just happened? I mixed it up some more and my egg floated right to the top. The egg is floating right there on top. So the salt water made the egg float. I just ended up needing a little bit more than 2 tablespoons. So that's science. It's trying and seeing what works and what doesn't work. I knew ahead of time that the salt water was supposed to make the egg float. I was really wondering why it wasn't floating, but when I added a little more salt, that helped. If you're using an egg, I would still recommend starting with 2 tablespoons of salt, and then if that's not making the egg float, maybe try stirring it a little bit more, because that's what helped mine. And then you can add a little bit more salt as you go. All right, so we're not done. Let's see about the sugar water and the baking soda. Okay, here's our sugar water. It's looking pretty clear. Sugar mostly dissolves into water. There's still some at the bottom. And I've got another egg. I'm gonna drop it in and we'll see what it does. It sinks straight to the bottom. And last but not least, our baking soda water. All right, here is the baking soda water. Drop the egg in. It also goes to the bottom. Well, here's another lesson learned with this experiment. And this could be different for you guys. It might depend on the eggs you have, the size of them. It could be anything. If I had some grapes with me, I would try this with grapes to see if that was any different. For my baking soda, the egg is also supposed to float. I can now see it in there. And it's doing a weird thing. It'll float up and it'll stay there. So it's not quite like the sugar water or the fresh water where it just went straight to the bottom. It floats a little bit and takes a second to sink to the bottom, and it's definitely standing up pretty well. But it's not floating, and now I can't even really see the egg in there, so I don't want to add any more. It'll float towards the top a little bit, like I just hit it and my spoon's barely in there, but it doesn't quite stay at the top. I don't think. I still can't really see it. All right, so that was our experiment. We tried floating eggs in 4 different things. Remember, you could use grapes, or if you have some little plastic toys or something, you don't want it to be super heavy, but you can try it in these different types of water and see which ones it floats in, which ones does it sink. Let me know if you use baking soda, how it goes, if it floats for you, because I'm pretty sure it was supposed to float in the baking soda a little bit better than it is. But like I said, I don't want to keep adding because then we won't be able to see anything in there anyway. So I can't wait to see your experiments. Let me know if you think of anything else to try to see if you can get the egg to float in. And if you're not doing the experiment, feel free to post on the Flipgrid what you think about this experiment and what the difference is between salt water, like the ocean, and fresh water, like a lake. All right, bye guys.